For the first time, Lakeshore Public Media is getting an intimate, up close and personal look at municipal government leaders across the region with our new series, Meet the Mayor. Today, Mayor Tom Dermody on the City of La Porte in his own words. Mayor Tom, we are here in your town in La Porte to talk about your community. You are one of our region neighbors, and so we just wanted to get the chance to get to know you and your community and share La Porte with the rest of the region. But before we talk about La Porte, I want to start with a few rapid fire questions just to kind of get to know you. So is that okay?
Anything goes, absolutely.
Oh boy, that's kind of scary. So here we go, rapid fire. What's one superpower you wish you could have?
Boy, you did get me right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Remake for the mistakes I've made, to be able to remake those and learn from them.
Okay.
And I think that would be something good for a lot of people because nobody's perfect.
Okay, so then piggybacking off of that, do you ask for permission or ask for forgiveness?
I love asking for forgiveness.
Okay, are you a morning person or a night owl?
You know, I'm kind of both.
Okay.
And everything in between. So depending on the day, like we had just had storms.
Right.
It's all day, every day. But I do like getting up early and having the calm.
Having the calm before the storm. So
Yes.
spring or fall?
Fall.
Fall, great. Glass half empty or glass half full?
Oh, it's definitely half full.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a tricky one.
Yep.
What was the last thing you searched on Google?
The last thing I searched on Google was who were the speakers last evening at the Republican National Convention.
Oh, interesting. We may talk about that a little bit later on. So how would your best friend describe you?
Aggressive, relentless, and loyal.
Oh, that's great. So do you think it's more important to be respected or liked?
I think if you do the job correctly, you definitely can be respected. But also, I think like could come along with that. But if you're doing the job correctly, I think respect is most important.
Absolutely. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Just get in the game. Don't sit on the sidelines. You're going to make mistakes, but if you're not in the game, you can't change people's lives.
Okay, one more.
Yes.
What are you most grateful for in life?
Family.
Absolutely. I think that's actually all of the questions I have. I don't even think we need to even continue with the interview. I feel like we know you so much right now. But we will talk about you and La Porte. But let me speak more about you. So you are a La Porte native, born and raised in La Porte. You've served in politics since 2006, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And
Actually, before, because I was on the, I was locally here on the school board.
Oh, now that I did not know, and that's a very important role that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but they are starting to pay attention to that now. And as we sit here in City Hall, you're in your second term as mayor, correct? And prior to that, you were a member of the Indiana House of Representatives representing the 20th District,
Yes.
correct? You were a small business owner and you worked in sales, correct?
Correct.
So I want to ask you, you have a wealth of experience from both the business sector as well as the public servant sector. But I've given the cliff notes of your resume, but spend some time and tell us more about you, the person.
Absolutely. I think, you know, most importantly, whether you look at my business background, you look at the political experience I've had, I think it's more bringing people together because the culture you set, working with others, that's the only way you're going to make change or make improvements. From a political perspective, it's never been about the R versus the D, because once you take office, you throw those out the door and you have everybody working together.
Right.
And, you know, we did that on day one as mayor when we had some issues that I think have been ignored for many years with slumlords and taking advantage of individuals in our community, putting our community at risk. And on day one, we let them know that this no longer was going to be the way. We shut down an apartment complex right across the street that had been an issue for 26 years.
Wow.
So we get after it. I think relentless, that when you ask the question about what would a friend say, I am going to be relentless if I believe it's the right thing. But it can't just be my focus. It has to be the team's focus. And the one thing I appreciate about our leadership team and the community is be honest with me. Don't tell me how great we're doing and then say, but, let's get to it. If you don't like something, let's talk about why,
Right.
but have good reasons. Don't just make it personal.
Well, it's interesting as I listen to you tell me about you, and you spent some time speaking about from day one, you threw out the DNR, that it wasn't about the DNR. I have the privilege and the honor to have the opportunity to speak to many state leaders, including the lieutenant governor, lots of people from the state house, and of course, region policymakers as well. And I have noted in my conversations with them the last few years, this recurring theme of working across the aisle to get the work done for all Hoosiers. And it's interesting that I thought that in those conversations that I was having with region policymakers, that it was just a region thing. But as I began to have more conversations with policymakers across the state, I said that this is something that is a Hoosier thing, and it's remarkable, and I wish that it was something that was mirrored across our country. So I'm glad that you shared that from day one. You threw out that DNR. It's really great for everybody in the city of La Porte.
Not only in the city of La Porte, but you can't just say it during an election campaign. You have to actually do it every day. And when I look at the lieutenant governor candidate on the Democrat side, Terry Gooden, I served with Terry for 10 years in the State House. He was here 2 weeks before he announced that as a part of the USDA, trying to find funding for people that needed water improvements outside the city, and how could we work together.
Wow.
To Suzanne Crouch, the current lieutenant governor, who I also served with as Republican. And it's just about getting the job done. And I think people are tired of the knocks of your competitor. And I grew up in athletics, and every day you didn't worry about what your opponent did. You worried about your process, and you worried about what it's going to take for you to win. And the easy way out is always to say negative things about your opponent or the other side, versus saying, hey, let's work together. I mean, I'm fine. If someone wants to get it on and talk about the issues, we'll get it on. And you see that in social media. But look someone in the eye and let's talk about the differences. Don't make it personal, and let's move forward.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, so what motivated you to pivot from being a small business owner, working in the business world, being a business leader, to get involved in public service, obviously beginning with serving on the school board?
I think it was my father, and just he was always involved with the Chamber of Commerce. And, I think there just was something that was given to my brother and I that, hey, give back. And how we looked is La Porte is a fantastic, unbelievable community that I had the opportunity to grow up in. And how do you give back? And too many people sit on the sidelines and just complain. And at one point, we didn't like how the school system was going, and said, hey, if you want to change it, get involved. And that's what started. I never had a political background before then.
Right, yeah.
And then, not only did I serve, but I also was that business owner. I was that manufacturer. So it's a combination. And I think that's what you see a lot of people, the true leaders, are not just trying to be a politician, but trying to give back to the community while they do their job. And that's what we have to find in the future for young people, because right now they don't want to run. And why would they?
Right.
With all the personal attacks, nobody's perfect, but we need young minds, new ideas from people on both sides of the aisle to say, hey, there's got to be a better way to do things, and I want to give back.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, so what have you brought from your experience from the business world and even from the State House to City Hall, to the City of La Porte?
From a fiscal perspective, live within your means. These are taxpayer dollars. We passed, in my first administration, we passed the first structurally balanced budget, meaning we're not going to spend more than we have coming in the history of La Porte. We're not going to borrow. I want to leave financially the City of La Porte's budget in a good position for those future leaders that will come after me. Also, teamwork. How do you make sure everybody knows your goals and you work together? And that's whether it's my own personal money in a business or taxpayer money here with the city of La Porte.
That is awesome. So obviously I had to do a lot of research, a lot of digging to prepare for this interview. And one thing that I noted is that you are quite active on social media, particularly Facebook. And I found it interesting that no matter what it is, if you are highlighting a lemonade stand and encouraging people to support kids there, or if you are just out in the community highlighting, leaving City Hall, going to a business, highlighting a small business, and even when Governor Holcomb made the trek up to Northwest Indiana for the 4th of July, congratulations, by the way,
Yes.
for being capital for the day, you were quite active on social media. And I sort of see this trend to that. So help me to understand, what made you adopt this strategy? And is it well received with the community?
Well, the other part is communication. And I think when
Okay.
you can communicate with the community, you keep them abreast of what's happening. You can't hide. And we put out there, and Jess Bruder, our communications director, has been wonderful because I'm not as tech savvy as I probably should be.
She really is wonderful.
Oh my gosh,
She's awesome.
she is a godsend, and we are so glad to pull her from the State House and bring her what I consider is her home now. But without her, a lot of this doesn't get done. But I tell you what, I think it's important that people know, number one, this is what's happening, even if it's something that we're not proud of, that needs to be improved. And then number two, I'm going to put my cell phone out there 24/7 if you have an issue or if you want to talk about it, because anybody can talk about it on social media, take shots, do whatever.
Right.
But call me, directly and say, hey, be a part of the solution, not just the problem.
And I should also note for our listening and viewing audience, not only are you live on social media quite often, highlighting events, speaking about things that are happening, very much like the power outage a few days ago, but I note that you also respond in real time to comments, good or bad, as you just said. And that's quite refreshing and quite remarkable when you think about that word transparency. And as you just shared, communication is the key. So I just found it quite refreshing that you're just out there.
Well, and I appreciate that. Sometimes people want you to respond until you do, because we're not going to give you the political spin. We're going to be direct.
Right.
And whether it's our water and sewer, when we have backups, we mentioned day one also, we have a $100 million problem of infrastructure because our infrastructure is 100 years old. And sometimes that means we're going to have to raise water and sewer rates, even though that most every dollar goes right back into our infrastructure. Our residents deserve the best, but we can either have low rates and do nothing, or increase to competitive rates and get the work done that our residents deserve. And sometimes you have to have the direct conversation that you don't want these backups. You don't want kids playing in the streets where waste has been backed up because our infrastructure is so old. So you can't have it both ways. And I love having that direct conversation. And another one is with housing. People talk every day that they want to help those low-income people, those that need help. Yet when we put a facility or in the process at our old Coke manufacturing building, that we're going to help those individuals that were homeless at one point and have either maybe a physical or mental disability. We had a packed full of people here that didn't want it in their backyard.
Wow.
So where is that conversation go? It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be friendly, but we're going to stick to the facts and say this is a reason why it needs to happen.
That's quite interesting. So, Mayor Tom, I want to put a pin in something you just brought up. You were speaking about infrastructure, and I want to talk about what I consider two key strategic priorities for La Porte: infrastructure, obviously, and economic development. And And I should note for our audience that the City of La Porte was recently awarded $1 million in federal dollars for a major infrastructure improvement to replace old sewers, which you were speaking about, to new separate sewers for sanitation and stormwater. Take a moment to tell us more about this project along Indiana Avenue that will be completed in tandem with NDOT's reconstruction of Indiana Avenue, US Highway 35, I believe it is, correct?
Well, and yeah, in Indiana Avenue, it's important to get that road done, but it would be a shame not to improve the infrastructure, both water and sewer, while they're doing that work. And that's what we're trying to combine efforts with, everyone that'll work with us. And that's where we said, we throw the R and the D away and said, hey, Congressman Frank Mervan covers this district, and how can his office help? And boy, did they help.
Yes.
And $1 million. And we had a press conference to recognize the congressman for his effort and his office. And again, we don't care. That money is green. We don't care that it's RD.
RD money,
and
right.
our residents don't care. They just want improved infrastructure, and that's everybody working together. And then you talk about Microsoft.
Yes.
Microsoft is a big thing. Microsoft could have come to 50,000 communities across this nation.
Right.
They chose the City of La Porte. And we talk about competing with the best. And I'm not sure everybody believed on day one when we said we're going to compete for those good companies and those brand name companies. And yet here we are 5 years later, thanks to the great work of Bert Cook, our economic development team, and really our entire leadership team. Microsoft now will have a La Porte, Indiana address.
Absolutely. So this is a great segue, because I was going to ask you about this $1 billion investment. Major from Microsoft for La Porte to be Indiana's first data center. How exciting. You don't think about, so we're from Lake County, and people in Lake County don't necessarily think that Microsoft would make the trek to LaPorte County, to La Porte, for such a major investment. So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk more about what this will mean for La Porte's economy, including jobs, as well as housing, and not just jobs and housing for those that will come to work specifically for Microsoft, but we know that will create more jobs, more job opportunities, and the need for more housing in La Porte. So talk more about that.
Absolutely. The quality of life in La Porte was something we heard, again, early on in our administration, that kids want to have more to come back to La Porte. And they were leaving those that we educated, smart kids. Now we're giving them a reason to come back home with the quality of life. And now, hey, you can make a great living, raise a family, be close to your parents, your grandparents, and make a good wage. And Microsoft will continue that. And I'll tell you what, it's going to put us on the map. And we think La Porte, again, on day one, we expected Microsoft. And I think that's the mentality, we have to have companies like that to say, hey, we think La Porte is a perfect place for you. And there's not a company out there large enough or too big that we're not going to target, we're not going to work for, because our residents deserve it.
That's a bold statement to say. To say, oh, we want Microsoft, we hope that we get Microsoft. But that's a pretty bold statement, and it speaks to your leadership to say we expect Microsoft. And so I think that is so powerful. I want to talk a minute about something you just alluded to a moment ago when you spoke about our talented youth. So I want to speak about brain drain, right?
Yes.
We are losing so many talented, highly educated young people who are leaving our state, unfortunately, fleeing our state, going to San Francisco or going to where the tech jobs are. Obviously, this new Microsoft Data Hub will attract those to come back here, right? Which is so exciting. So I want to ask you, and I think you've already answered this already. Do you believe that this will play a part in retaining those that are here, that are maybe in college, that are planning for those tech jobs? And do you really and truly believe that this Microsoft Hub will bring those talented young people back to the region?
100%. Okay. We have different companies already that are recruiting engineers every day. And we need to make sure we're doing our part as the city, recruiting those high-end individuals that we've already educated here,
Right.
keep tabs on them, keep involved with them, make sure that they know during the summer we're finding work for them with private companies, and just make sure that they know, hey, when you graduate, La Porte's a great place to live. And that's why the bank's apartments were so important, so we can have some higher end living, but also address, again, the slumlords that have been in La Porte for 20 years or more. Jeff Batchelor with code enforcement has been fantastic. And they're the little things, and people sometimes get frustrated with us, but when you see small weeds along the curb, that leads to bigger weeds and
Right.
bigger areas. And people want to be proud of where they come from. And when
true.
I grew up in La Porte had a pride about where they lived. And I think we kind of lost that. And that's why I ran for mayor. The expectation is high, but also people now recognize we're doing it for them. And it's great to see that they're now watching and saying, hey, you missed this or you missed that, because I've never said we'll be perfect.
Right.
But we'll wear people out. We will outwork anybody, and we're a part of the region, and we love being a part of that region. But also, if it's in a competitive situation, buckle up because we're coming. So we love having that opportunity to make La Porte be a, as we call it, and I call it, a spotless community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to get serious, if you will, for a moment, and I want to talk about a topic that has garnered a lot of chatter on social media, in local media, and in media in the region. And it's a topic that has caused some anxiety for some, and certainly has made a lot more people happy, if you will. And that's this annexation of the 39th North Conservancy District that took effect earlier this year, right? So when I took a look at what the buzz was about, I saw two words. I saw information and I saw misinformation in a lot of the comments from people. It was either the information is out there, the information is great, it's correct, good, or someone is putting out misinformation, and they were saying that your office was putting out misinformation. So I want you to set the record straight here about this annexation, and speak more to what this will mean for La Porte. And before you do that, because many of our listening audience may not even be familiar with the topic that we're discussing, can you kind of share what this is?
Absolutely. And so one thing we talked about is making sure with our infrastructure, everything is top notch. And we're not going out annexing land unless a farmer wants to do that. For example, the Microsoft deal.
Right.
You know, they weren't going to get that deal done without water and sewer, so they needed to be annexed. It was a friendly annexation, all good there. But when you talk about 39 North, people in the county, we don't want to bother you, but if you're in the county, that means you don't receive water and sewer from the city.
Okay.
So we had been supplying water and sewer to the city up at 39 North when it was many years ago, and 20 years ago, a contract when there wasn't much development, wasn't much housing.
Okay.
And so now all this development happened, yet the infrastructure never was improved. And when I heard from our water superintendent, when I heard from our fire chief that, hey, did you know if you plug in, if there's a fire, one hydrant, it dries up all the other hydrants, and you have to pick, if two homes are on fire, you have to pick one or the other home. And we don't live in a third world country.
Right.
So I said, look, we're going to fix the problem. It's a $13 million problem. I can't put $13 million of city funds to make sure people are safe without saying, hey, in exchange for that, you're going to be part of the city and be part of the annexation. And if you don't want to do that, then great, the contract's up. This wasn't guaranteed for water and sewer for a lifetime, so we'll end that contract. We won't renew it, and we'll focus on the city of La Porte. And you can have a well, you can have whatever you need to get your water and sewer, but we need to focus on the city of La Porte.
Okay.
And so I think it worked out well. The majority of residents were so supportive of it,
Right.
want to see the improvements. And we're moving forward now. And the first thing we did is we talk about spotless. You know, on day one of the annexation, we got up there and street swept the roads to make sure they knew that expectation we have.
Wow. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you believe, if not that, is the most pressing issue facing the city of La Porte right now?
You know, always being able to pivot financially to make sure that, you know, when I was in the legislature, I supported, and 70% of Hoosiers supported the property tax caps. That's a great thing, so that people can stay in their homes and be able to pay a known number for their property taxes.
Right.
But with that, coming from a business side, a government side, we lose 30% of that revenue that stays with the homeowner. And if I was in business, I could have my revenue reduced, but then I'm going to cut something else to live within my means and still make a profit in private business. Here in the city, we get reduced 30%. We're not reducing streets, fire, police. We did not cut any services. We're still providing all those services. So it's allowed us to find new ways to do things, be efficient. And then also, I think the other thing is going to be healthcare. Somebody has to get control of healthcare costs. We're an unhealthy state. The rates are through the roof. And we need to find new ways to do things, as we say here in the city. And we just had a meeting with our leadership team that, number one, we want to improve healthcare for our employees here while also finding a way to reduce cost. And no one's been able to do that. We're going to do that. But we care about our employees here. And we want them to know that we want the quality of life for them and their families. And we're going to find a way, but it means you have to be willing to be very nimble and be able to pivot on a moment's notice.
Right, absolutely. So I want to ask you, so we do this in my home around the dinner table every night to just check in with one another, and I kind of call it a heart check. I have a very large family. So we go around the table and we share the ups and downs of our day and or our week, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I want to ask you, what have been the roses and thorns, if any, during your time serving as mayor for the city of La Porte?
So I just love coming to work every day. I will tell you, we say team is number one, our residents are number two, because if our team doesn't believe in the direction we're going, our residents will suffer. And so we have a wonderful team. We have to keep them focused and happy and make sure, I call myself their blockers. So if you're running into a problem, come see me. I'll make sure I block for you so that you can get your job done. But also love seeing the residents. We've changed a mindset here. We've raised the standard, and it's great to see our residents, people that I grew up with, and especially those from out of town that maybe haven't come back to La Porte for a while, and they don't see, you can't see it on a day-to-day basis, but if you haven't been here for a few years, to look and go, oh my gosh, or to see La Porte in the Wall Street Journal saying, hey, Microsoft's coming to La Porte, Indiana, or the national basketball tournament that we bring to the Civic where ESPN comes.
Right, big deal.
I mean, I have people texting that grew up here in La Porte and go, oh, I can't believe that's the Civic. I'm watching it on ESPN from Arizona, from California. And some of the issues, we haven't found an answer for mental health. And that's something that sits with me, because mental health isn't just the homeless person walking up and down the streets. Everybody, you probably know somebody or have a family individual that's probably dealing with it. We all have somebody. How do we solve that problem to keep from suicide happening? So those are those concerns. Also the drug addiction, the fentanyl that's coming in here. And people say, you can't win the war on drugs. And I said, we will end the war on drugs. And I just had it with the police chief. I'm passionate. I've had to stop going door to door on my own late at night because I've walked into some situations.
That's not safe,
but you're not going to do that with our children in La Porte. And I want the hammer dropped I want to knock in doors, and that's what I've said since day one, kick in doors, and we're going to pull people out that don't want to live their best life in La Porte, and we're going to address those that, excuse me, that are not following the rule of law, and it's just unacceptable. And I think you'll see some things in the future where if our police department, if our leadership doesn't believe that we will end the war on drugs and we will win the war on drugs, then that's a problem for me.
Mayor Tom and I spent time together at Plaza 618, a centrally located facility in historic downtown La Porte.
So, Mayor Dermody, we are in front of a beautiful mural, right? And this seems to be one of the main attractions for La Porte. So, take a moment to tell us a little about this mural. I believe it's called Long Live La Porte.
Correct.
Tell us about the story that it tells about this community.
Well, I think just how special La Porte is. Mayor Milo, former Mayor Milo, led the charge on this. And one thing that always stands out to me is our 4th of July parade, where we've been, capital for the day for many, many years. And I think people appreciate all that you see up here, and it all leads to the quality of life. And that's something we have promoted, whether it's our downtown making a more walkable downtown, and you can hear by some of the noise.
Yes.
It's difficult.
Thriving, but it's thriving.
It is. And
that indicates it's thriving in this community.
100%. And I think, something you look at, to have the mural so people can enjoy it. We've looked at the controversial idea of removing truck traffic off of our downtown so we can be a more walkable community. So when people bring their families and kids to look at our history, it is amazing. Living the lake life, to baseball, to concerts that we have, that we try to bring it all together so people, again, back to what we talked about earlier, the pride of La Porte and how special of a community we really are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to throw probably a pretty tough question at you, right? So you were reelected to be the mayor of La Porte back in 2023, and you previously served at the State House representing House District 20. But I want to ask you, because I'm quite curious, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are curious in La Porte as well. Do you plan to run for this seat in the next election?
So right now, you always want to get out before they kick you out, I always say.
Okay.
I'm always looking for a challenge.
Okay.
And this community, when we took over, I thought there was a challenge to say, hey, we can make La Porte a better place. And so right now, my plan is to be here and to continue forward to get the job done. Also, there's something pretty cool about seeing Microsoft being built here in the community. And as I tell our team, are you guys staying? Are you ladies staying? Because if you're staying, I'm staying. If you go, I'm going, because it takes a team. But one thing we do have to do is start developing young talent that want to be involved leading this community for the future.
Absolutely. So, Mayor Tom, Northwest Indiana has kind of exploded in population since 2018 at a pace that is around 3% or about 2.9%. And I note that Indiana University Associate Professor of Economics, Micah Pollock, attributes the region's population growth to an investment in what you spoke to earlier, that quality of life, right? So how will you balance here in La Porte this unprecedented need for housing as the region gains more people year after year due to domestic migration?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a great quality of life, our parks, our lakes, but if we want people to come here and stay here, we have to have a place for them to live.
Right.
And so that's why you see from Habitat for Humanity building homes, you see the banks. We just announced the Park Street development. We also have Steiner Homes, which is the top builder in Northwest Indiana, that's now building along our 18th Street development.
Wow. Okay.
And when you look back, and in 30 years, we've never had an outside builder come in and build a neighborhood other than Ficus Builders, which is a hometown builder.
Oh, that's interesting.
We need to be open to development. We also have, which we think is going to be the crown jewel, Beechwood Lakes, right next to our fantastic golf course, public golf course, and we think that's going to be special because we also need a place for our CEOs that bring their business here,
Right.
for a place so they're not going to Valparaiso, Chesterton, but they want to stay here right in La Porte. And we believe we'll have that type of housing here, but we also need to work and continue to work with our school system because that's one of the first things people want to know about is how well is our school system doing. And I think we've worked with administrators now to say we've got areas to improve, and now we're on the same page, and it's going to be exciting times for parents of students in La Porte school system.
Right, right. So you spoke a lot about new developments, about new businesses coming here, but what are you going to do to kind of help maintain La Porte's uniqueness, its character, for those that kind of hold true to that?
We don't want to be a suburb of Chicago. We want to be the best La Porte that we can be and not lose that hometown value. And I think that's where you see people can still get around here. They still can get to the lakes, but now the amenities are improved, brought up to where they should be so that they can truly enjoy it. And we never want to give up who we are as La Porte. We're a hardworking, blue collar community, and we just want to make sure that the families know there are things to do here when they're not at work, for family time, and give a reason for those individuals that have left here that we educated in La Porte to come back home and know that you can go to Chicago within an hour, hour and a half, but when you come to La Porte, there are opportunities, but it's still the La Porte you remember.
Absolutely. So I know that you call La Porte the place to be for progress, right? We've talked about this offline and even in our conversation earlier today. But what is the one thing you wish people knew about La Porte?
Just that we are a welcoming community. And if people are looking for a place based on the taxes of Chicago or Northwest Indiana becoming too populated and Lake and Porter, that, wow, I didn't realize La Porte had all this to raise a family, feel safe, and give us a chance.
Right. I want to spend our last few minutes talking back about you again, right? So what motivates you? What motivates Tom Dermody?
Wanting to win and
You've
being
said that
competitive.
a number of times.
I think number one, I wake up, make a difference in people's lives. But I love to compete, you know, whether it's, and we get laughed, it's pickleball, it's basketball, you know, we still try to do things like that with our friends. But I want our teams to have fun, and I love to have fun, but also compete to be the best that we can be. And if we can help improve lives, that's my motivation. And that's why maybe when we have these power outages, we have trees falling down. I think the one thing mayors, leadership, political people can't do is hide. You need to get out, be with the people, go to their house, checking in on them, doing the things that are necessary that just make the people feel we care and know that they care. What do you need? And we're never going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but it's how you deal with those mistakes and just make sure that we're in front of the residents and make sure they're hearing our voice.
Right. So before I let you go, I just wanted to share that I've noted throughout our conversation today, both at City Hall and here at this square, that you are just so generous with your praise for your staff. Obviously, you have a wonderful staff. You're generous with your praise for the community leaders, the community business leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's quite admirable. And I just want to ask you, is this, and I'm going to call you a servant leader, do you believe that your servant leadership is what have community members, everyone buy into city initiatives that you put in front of them?
Being accessible, available, and knowing that I'm there for them, they're not there for me. You know, I probably did everything opposite, you know, from going to the State House and then coming back local.
Home.
And that's kind of a good feeling because people can say what they want. I'll go sit at my pool, sit behind in the backyard if people are ready for me to leave. But I can do the things that are necessary, make the tough decisions, have difficult discussions with residents, because I see how special this community is.
Right.
But it doesn't happen alone.
Right.
Sometimes my job is just to stay out of the way because I can only mess things up.
Wow.
We've got a quality team. And if you hire the right people, if you bring the right businesses in, everything else will take care of itself.
Wow. Mayor Dermody, Mayor Tom, I have really enjoyed our time here together. I have enjoyed learning so much about the city of La Porte. It's a town that I was obviously not that familiar with. It is so charming, it is so beautiful, and the people here are really the heartbeat of this community. And I see that how your upbringing is shown through in City Hall. And so I thank you so much for spending time with us today on Lakeshore Public Media. And I know that we will be back out here again.
I look forward to it, and hopefully we'll be to look for that next house that you want to live in right here in La Porte.
Absolutely.
We welcome you, and La Porte is open for business. It's open for a special life.
Right.
And thank you for highlighting that, and we look forward to more.
Wait, so since you said that, I do want to add one question. So my husband has a difficult time making the transition from across the state line over here. So make the case for him to move to La Porte.
You know, if you have a family, if you have children, if you want to feel safe and still be yet close to a large city like Chicago, La Porte with all of our lakes, the outdoors, and wanting, you know, people want to be a healthier community.
Right.
Come to see our parks, our lakes. You can still have privacy, and it's just a special opportunity that the other communities do not have.
Absolutely. Again, I thank you so much for carving out time. I know that you're extremely busy. I know that you've got phone calls to return and community members to meet, but I thank you again for joining us today.
Look forward to the next time.
All righty. Thank you so much, sir.